Hi everyone and welcome back. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Samhain and particularly how my group celebrates their Samhain ritual. Um, there are a lot of different aspects that aren't necessarily incorporated in everybody's Samhain tradition. Um, we do a dumb supper personally. We don't necessarily always do that as a group, though we have. I personally have an ancestor altar set up outside for me. But if the group wants to do a dumb supper, I will set a separate place out on the table for that. And let's just jump into it. So you've probably heard of Samhain. It's a pretty big deal in the pagan community. So if you label yourself pagan, you've probably celebrated it if you have a group. Um, it's summer's end. It's the end of the light half of the year and the beginning of the dark half of the year. So it's known as the Witch's New Year. We incorporate a little ritual where we pour out last year's water. But I'll walk you through it. So for me, I have a ancestor altar that I keep outside in front of my front door to help guide my ancestral dead, my dearly departed grandmothers and grandfathers of the land, of the heritage, of generally people looking out for me. So they find my altar outside, very similar to, leaving the jack-o'-lanterns outside. But I use 3 of these candles and I put them outside on in a wreath. And red for me represents blood. So this is my color for referring to the dead, the ancestors, and power as well. So I take 3 of these and I usually put them around one of those wreaths, you know, like the fall time wreaths that are made with the like fake orangish leaves around it. And I find that adds some festivity to it. Then I'll usually have some sort of ornate skull that I've decorated, and that I will leave every night burning with an offering of food and drink. And I won't skimp. I won't give, just what I had left over. I will make them a plate with all of the fixings and all of the trimmings. And I don't care if they're dead, because I feel like sacrifice is supposed to hurt just a little bit. It's supposed to take a little something from you. Otherwise, it's not a sacrifice. So, like the other day, I had a treat out and the kids forgot the cheese and sour cream. So, of course, we had to go back in the house and get the cheese and the sour cream and put it on there and make it all festive and pretty looking, just like I would give it for any other member of the family. And it just doesn't have to, like, if you're young and you haven't lost anyone, but you've lost a pet, pets matter. They're loyal, they're close to you, they spend a whole lot of time depending on you. And when they're dead, I do think that they spend a lot of time hanging around you. I lost a cat this year. Her name was Collie Nix, and she passed away on my front step of old age. And I still feel all the time her brush up against my leg, a shadow skitter down the hallway, and I don't believe that she's gone. So if you want to incorporate this for a pet and leave out a bed and a little bit of food, a bowl of water, then incorporate that into what you're doing, into who you've lost. Just like if you've lost a human relative. If your grandma passed away last year and you want to honor her, you were really close to her, but you know that she loves key lime pie, then go ahead and whip you up some key lime pie. Put that on the plate, make it just the way she would want it, and leave it out for her. And sit out. You can sit out there. That's the purpose of the dumb supper. And for those that don't know, I know I'm throwing around terms. I assume that everybody knows what I know sometimes because I surround myself with pagans. I have a very strong pagan community around me. So, the dumb supper. You set out a table, and in a table, you set out a chair and a plate, a whole place setting for the dead. And you serve everyone in the family, everyone who's come, everyone in the coven, and you serve the the plate laid out for the dead. And everybody eats in silence. hoping to get a message, communication, something. And they eat in silence with their dead present, because during Samhain, the veil between this world and the other world is thinnest. So that's why I usually get a bunch of phone calls about people needing me to ward their properties around this time of year, because they suddenly realize that their place is haunted and they're trying to exterminate the problem, not realizing that everything, it's too saturated, you know? You can ward your property, yes, but it's gonna be a reoccurring problem. It's like if you've had roaches, and I'm not calling the dead roaches. They definitely deserve to be honored and respected, but to an extent, you could be letting strangers into your house. So it would be as if you live next to a dumpster and you sprayed all the time, but the someone who was dumping in there just had too many bugs. So they're just going to go over to your place where it's nice and warm. So you need to make sure that when you're experiencing this, that it's not just because of the season, or that it's not as big of a problem as you think it is. So we do that. We do the dump supper, and once everyone is done eating, we eat completely in silence. No one says a word. We just sort of pass each other stuff, and it's really intuitive. And afterwards, when everyone's done eating and everyone's cleared their plate, then you share your experience. If you heard your grandma touch your shoulder and whisper something into your ear, you can share that. Or you can pass. If it's something that's just for you and you don't want to share, then you can do that. And after the dump supper is over, the food needs to be disposed of. Some people will go out and bury it. I'm personally not the type to bury all of my spells. I'm not going out there to the side of the road or a crossroad or to a graveyard to bury every little single thing that I do. I do get rid of it. I will throw things away. I will recycle things, or I will leave things out for the animals. I don't need to go out with a shovel and bag things and put plastic and trash into the ground. Because a big part of being pagan for me is being an environmentalist. So I'm not going to destroy things in order to, or I'm not going to destroy the planet in order to do my practice. So all of these candle holders, I'll put them on a hot plate, melt all the wax out of them, throw them into the recycling. And you could reuse that wax too if you want to. If you're gonna make some candles, I personally don't have any of the wicks, so I haven't really been doing that lately, but I have in the past. I've made several candles. So my ritual, it's pretty much your standard Wiccan-esque ritual, except for its components, or its parts. So we call the elements, we call the god and goddess, we call Lou and Morgana, and then we light the Westgate candle. So the Westgate candle, it stands in the west, and the west represents death, because each element on the wheel of the year represents, each direction represents a different life stage. So, for example, east is where the sun rises. That's new beginnings. That is birth. But Samhain falls on the west side of the calendar. So, birth, life, death. And at death is where we're going to honor this, light this candle so that the dead can find their way. And you can do this in your own house. If you're a solitary practitioner, you're not doing a big ritual, you can light a candle in your west window to welcome in the dead that you want to communicate with, that you want to welcome into your life, that you want to honor, your uncle that you think is coming to visit you. You can light him a candle in the west. So we light the candle in the west. We have this poem that we say, and then we have the water ritual. So because it's the new year, we like to do this little new year tradition where we take the water from last year and we pour it out. We usually collect rainwater, and we'll put little elements into the water that represent this year to us, some herbs, and we'll have everyone in the group wash their hands in the water. So we'll wash our hands, and in that water it has all of our hand dirt in it. And after that, we'll just pour it into the dirt. And that is us getting rid of last year. We make some offerings to the ancestors. We do cinnamon and mugwort and mullein. And then I do a hell note ritual. Now, some people call them different things, but they're heaven and hell money. They're this Asian tradition. This is them right here. These are the version in American dollars. And what you do is, if you have ancestors that have passed away, there's a lot of different uses for these, but they are all for the dead. And you take them and you fold them into a rectangle. You fold it in half and you fold it in half again. And you burn it saying the person's name who passed away. And they had a different, the Chinese had a different version of hell than we generally think of, than a lot of people generally think of. And it's more like a continuation of the life that we're living. So when we burn this money, what we're doing is we're giving it to them to spend in the afterlife. So if you're a grandma, your abuela, your nona is going to travel from a whole other realm to visit you, it would be a really nice gift to give them some money to take home. A lot of people also use this when they're collecting graveyard dirt. They burn it as a payment, or they'll leave it at the graves as a payment for graveyard dirt that they've taken, to try to pay the spirits. And if you do visit a graveyard this year for Samhain, I was thinking about doing that at midnight to dust off some of the graves and leave some flowers and candles. You can definitely do that. But don't get caught doing anything crazy. Don't make our religion, our traditions look bad. Don't be out there, trying to have an orgy on a grave. Not that you ever would. Not that I've ever heard of anyone that would. But I definitely do not need to see that in the news and to have someone ask me, hey, aren't you pagan? Do you do that? No, I don't do that. Okay? Everything that I do is out of respect. And that is the conclusion of my Samhain ritual. Of course, we close and dismiss and tie it all up into a nice little bow. And I'm really excited about doing it tonight. We're doing a little bit late because Samhain didn't land on a weekend, and we all have kids and families and jobs and school. So it's very impractical for me to necessarily do Samhain on a Wednesday or a Thursday night. So we're going to do it today. And I think that's okay. I mean, Dia de los Muertos lasts until the 2nd. So I think that there's a little bit of a grace period, especially since the veil, I think, is thin. It's been thin for a couple of weeks, and I think it'll still be thin for a couple of weeks after. And that's a lot of the things. A lot of people want to do it directly the day on, and you definitely can. It'll definitely be the peak of it, but you can do it a little bit after. All right. Well, it was great talking to you today. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to do. Bye-bye.